Hey, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, I was going to have an AI write a silly, goofy opening for us for this episode.
Okay.
Kind of give us some prompts about an opening for our podcast. But
no.
ChatGPT was at capacity when I tried to use it to do that. All the alternative options either had a wait list to get in or you had to pay some kind of subscription to do it. And I'm not going to pay for just what's going to be a silly bit on the show.
No, right.
Or may have been or it was too complex to even just figure out.
I understand.
So I'm sorry I don't have the funny, clever.
We've got the human
opening
version of the opening.
Yes. And in case
still
that
have to
wasn't
muddle through.
Yeah, exactly. And in case that wasn't an indicator of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to get into some of these AI tools today and the stuff that's been a big buzz around the world of marketing and innovation and advertising and coding.
Yep.
So all these new AI services like Midjourney, ChatGPT, the Bing chatbot that is apparently trying to break up marriages now. If you haven't heard that story, seriously go look for it. We got Jody Costa back with us today. We picked somebody that I knew was going to have some opinions about this.
Yes, right.
And in fact, has even actually already been using this a few times.
Oh, really? She has been?
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
all right. Yeah.
Now, so we got all these questions we got to answer. We got to talk, about, what is it like? What does she think of it? What's her experience with it so far?
Yep.
Is this something that can replace the marketing team or your designers or whatever?
Yeah.
We'll get in some positives and negatives about it. And we'll talk about what maybe we see next. We'll do our usual crystal ball.
But wait a minute. All the answers that we come up with are probably already old because the story changes.
I know, exactly.
By the hour.
Like this is like we're recording this episode a week before it's going to be released, and I promise you there will be like 5 new news stories within the next week. It's entirely possible AI either will have collapsed or taken over the world in that time. Who knows?
But we're going to try our best to get these answers.
We'll do our best. This could be some fun historical pod maybe for,
and just 1 week old.
So,
wow.
Like this was the last recorded communication about podcasts, about AI before
the
it
machines
took over.
just shut us down.
Now, I'll tell you one question that I'm already going to answer ahead of time here, though.
Yes.
It's not going to replace podcast hosts.
Oh, no.
Because, a big part of that is you got to show up.
Yeah, right.
And ChatGPT didn't show up for me.
There you go.
So
job security.
Boom. I think we're safe at the moment.
All right.
All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's tech connecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we've got Jody Costa back on with us. 3-4 time now? I don't know how many times you've been on the show at this point.
I lost count.
Yeah, that's okay.
3 times. We're going to go 3 times.
Well, I think it's 3.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Jody's a regular at this point. She is the VP of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships at Barcoding, Inc. Thank you so much for coming back to the show. We appreciate having you. What's been happening in your world lately? What's going on with you?
Thank you so much for having me back. I absolutely love being on this show with you guys and really appreciate you wanting to hear my opinions again. So thank you. All is well here. I'm coming to you live from Baltimore at our headquarters. So you'll actually see some stuff moving around in the background, which is great. It's not fake.
There you go. No AI there.
There you go.
No AI. Yep. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into today's conversation. There's quite a bit to cover.
Good. Well, and honestly, my first thought was, okay, we got to find a way to get Jody back on the pod because we always have to find a reason to get Jody back on and talk about marketing.
Absolutely.
And then as soon as I thought that, my immediate next thought was, we got to talk about these whole AI things and this whole conversation that's going on about can AI replace marketing?
Yes.
Do we no longer need writers or, all this, do we no longer need designers?
We're having an identity crisis, right?
exactly.
On the marketing side.
And the funny thing is, again, since we decided, it's been maybe about a month since we decided we were going to do this podcast and booked it all and everything and came up with it. Since that time, so much has changed in this story. And I think we've already kind of hit this tipping point where it's no longer a conversation about like, can people be replaced, but like, how are we actually going to use this and do something?
How is it going to be implemented?
So a quick explainer, if for some reason you're someone who's not caught up on all this and not been paying attention to this in news, there's all these new tools that are out there. These open source AI enabled tools.
Yep.
The biggest ones probably are Midjourney, which we talked about some last year.
Yep.
We even showed it off at VarTech,
Yep.
which is for design, like an
Yeah,
idea of you
right.
put in some prompts.
You put in a prompt, a word or two, and it'll create an image.
Exactly. Create an image for you, basically, on whatever you can imagine. It can find a way to create an image out of that. And then the other one, which has been much more recent, since November, I think, when it kind of launched, and has been the big buzz and kind of really taken this whole conversation to the next level, has been ChatGPT.
Yep.
And that one is basically a similar idea, except it's for writing instead, where again, you can put in a prompt, you can ask a question, and it will list out, whatever it is you need. If you're saying like, hey, I want to know what are the top 5 point of sale, needs or whatever for a restaurant or something like that. It will scour the internet,
Or
pull some data,
write
and
me
pull
a
it in.
thesis on the time-space continuum
There
and how
you go.
gravity affects
exactly.
it.
Yeah, whatever you can think of, you'll find it. If for some reason you haven't seen this, I'll put the links to stuff in the show notes. Again, as I mentioned up front, though, ChatGPT has a capacity issue.
Yeah.
So many people are using it that sometimes
Right.
it can be hard to get in. They do have a subscription model already set up, though. That
Of course they
can
do.
get you priority access, because
Yeah,
they had to start monetizing it. But in the meantime, it's if you want to play around that, it can be a little hard to access. Maybe, I don't know, if you do it in the middle of the night, maybe you have a little easier time with it. So that's kind of where we're at with this. And I did want to throw out a couple quick stats before I turn this over to Jody to talk about. There was an article from the fishbowlapp.com that said that 27% of professionals have already used one of these AI tools.
Really?
I think this was ChatGPT in particular that we're talking about.
All right.
37% are in marketing and advertising. Kind of makes sense. That's
So about 40%.
there's a-
Okay. Yeah.
Direct connection there. And 35% of those are in the tech sector. Well, I guess 35% overall are in the tech sector.
Yeah.
Because I know there's been some discussion about using this for coding. People have found ways that they can create code from this.
wow.
Which
Okay.
seems like the practical use that may actually be useful here. We'll get into that maybe more later.
All right.
But, I wanted to start with you, though, Jody, because, as soon as I reached out to you about this, you did mention that you had used it a couple times. You've sent some emails to your team about it and then discussed it with them. So what's your experience been with this so far? Where, what have you played with? What are you finding out about this? Just how do you feel about this whole AI, marketing tools right now?
Yeah, so I will preface this whole conversation with I am a well-known Luddite, which is wonderful that you're having me talk about AI. But the reason that's important is that I'm an enthusiast about understanding where these technologies are going. And I think this healthy curiosity, because potentially of a healthy distrust, is really, really important and vital. So just to back up a little bit, right? We talk about ChatGPT, which launched in November. This one has obviously taken the world by storm, and I hopped right on because I want to know, what is it? What is it going to be used for? How is it going to disrupt things? And so really, from a barcoding perspective and a Jody perspective, it was a very experimental R&D type of situation. It was like, I just want to know what everyone's talking about. And so doing a little research first in trying to understand what is, a large learning model, and how is it trained, and what is it, kind of the backstory, what's the backing, the company that's behind it, right? And I think that's something that is really important for marketers to keep in mind, that OpenAI, there is a company behind it, right? And that company has its own mission, and the mission is actually much larger than building a chatbot, right? Or building a tool for marketers. Their mission is artificial general intelligence, right? And so know that as you participate and as you jump into using these tools, you're contributing, right, information and data into that overarching goal of artificial general intelligence, which is a whole nother ballgame that we will not get into today. But I think it's important for all professionals to kind of take that step back and just say, okay, do I really understand what it is I'm about to play with, and like how it's been built and how it learns, and that way I can know exactly how to use the outputs. So when it launched, kind of saw a lot of the buzz, got excited about it, hopped on, made an account, and just started dabbling myself, just putting in some very simple prompts. Tell me the difference between an AGV and an AMR, for instance, right? Tell me how automation will impact warehousing in the future. Sort of little blog prompty kind of things. But it became very clear that there's the outputs they seem magical, right? I mean, it is amazing. You can put something in and you're just, boom, you get this very natural sounding response almost instantaneously. You're watching it, right? It's really fascinating. You can ask it, which I did, you can ask it to write you poetry. So some of you guys know that that's part of my background in writing. So I asked it to write a poem to get our entire company excited for our January kickoff conference, and shared that out. It said, ChatGPT has wrote you a poem to get you excited about this conference. So we have done a lot of dabbling. In general, when I did send it out to the company to kind of start to get their feet wet, it was really around content generation, brainstorming types of use cases. So if you're stuck and you can't seem to get off that just blank page, maybe ChatGPT can give you a starting point. But in no way, shape, and form did I encourage folks to kind of take that output and then publish directly. So we are in experimental mode. We're testing it out. We know that we're part of OpenAI's kind of larger vision just by contributing to this. And we're trying our best to keep up with all of the fast-paced technical underpinnings of what these AI models are really bringing to the table.
What I found fascinating is, this phrase, you still need to know what to ask in order for it to turn out well.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's a pretty powerful concept. Like if you're, but it's true, because I've dabbled a little bit with it as well, as Jody has. And if I'm not asking the right thing, it's garbage in, garbage out. And I know we'll get to that, I guess, a little bit. But it is fascinating what you can do with it. And I'll give another use case, because we were working with Intel on a couple things in the lead up to one of our events. And we asked it some very direct questions about our industry. Like, this is what we asked it: create 10 questions which should train the VAR salesperson to ask stakeholders to gain interest in doing a project around WMS. So like
that's some specificity there.
That's very specific in it, and so it listed 10 things. What are your challenges and pain points in order fulfillment process? How do these challenges impact your business? So I mean, it listed out 10 of it. So it's like, if you know what to ask it, I guess, and if you I don't know, it's all about what you're asking it, I guess, is part of where I landed.
Right.
And the effectiveness of what you're going to get out of it. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm gonna ask our next question here, and have Jody respond to this first before I get into my experience with it.
Fair enough.
So far, because I think it's going to tie very much into what we're going to talk about next.
Fair
year,
enough. Yeah.
Which is because of this, as this stuff, has taken off, as I mentioned, there's been this conversation that started about, well, do we even need writers anymore? Do we need designers?
Right.
Do we need marketers?
Right.
Again, like I said, there's some coding. Do we need a coder anymore? So these questions are starting to pop up about, which always cracks me up whenever there's some new innovation.
Yeah.
Someone inevitably says, is there somebody whose job we can replace?
Right.
Either that or they're panicked. Oh my God, is somebody going to replace my job with this? So all that conversation has been kind of happening lately. So I feel like we've kind of already reached a point where we sort of know the answer to this. But let's clarify it anyway. Jody, do we think marketers or creative types like us should be concerned at all about this technology replacing us in any way?
I actually think it's a yes and a no. So I think for sure this technology disrupts career paths in writing, marketing, design. There's just no doubt about it because of the efficiencies that can be gained and kind of what the output can, what the ChatGPT can bring to the table, or any kind of large learning model for that matter. The AI is already getting to a point where you could certainly see that if you didn't have a care in the world for quality, you could start churning stuff out, right? I mean, faster than ever. And I think that's where the yes comes in, right? Could you potentially down the road foresee a time where traditional types of roles could be obsolete? I think the answer, you have to kind of visualize that and say, yeah, there is a potential that certain types of roles could get outsourced to AI. But that doesn't mean that the marketing profession, the design profession goes away. Because as Dean mentioned, you have to have good brand strategy. You have to have a good understanding of what you're trying to do in order to get the most out of these tools. Because today they are tools. They are simply tools. And so if you don't have that good foundation, you are not going to get the most out of these tools. And then in fact, if you go back to that whole concept of do we really know how these learning models were built, what they were trained on, you'll find if you do a little digging, right, the data set is actually not as big as you might think in terms of what they actually were trained on. And then you'll realize that they were only trained on a certain amount of data for a certain amount of time. So like Jasper AI, right, which is an AI built to really professionally help bloggers and marketers build content, right? If you go and look, Jasper's training ended in 2019. Jasper does not know that COVID-19 happened, right?
Good point.
Jasper does not know this. Jasper,
that's a critical fact, by the way.
Yes.
kind of
little thing that happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, are humans replaceable? No, because these AIs are trained on a certain amount of data, and so you are always going to need someone, an expert, to go back through the outputs and make sure it's factual, make sure it makes sense, and from a marketing standpoint, make sure it's on brand, and what you're trying to do. The search engines are still going to reward you for quality. They're not going to reward you for spitting out a lot of AI content that's stuffed with keywords. They're still not going to reward you for that. So I think that, yes, there may be some roles in task automation that could change how marketing teams are built, because AI will be a component of it. But no, it doesn't do a direct replacement of our profession, because humans still buy from humans, and these tools still need a lot of human intervention to make sure that what they're producing is accurate and factual.
That's fair. You know, and when I was thinking about as well, like, is it really going to replace things? I was trying to think of who's going to be the most impacted. And I kind of drifted towards, from a marketing perspective, agencies, right? So agencies have multiple disciplines within an agency. They've really literally got, writers, whereas maybe a small SMB VAR, if you're the marketing department, you're wearing a lot of hats.
Right, right.
If you do graphic design, you're probably also writing copy. You're probably also doing a little bit, maybe even programming on the website, right?
Yeah.
And things of that nature. But if you're an agency, you've got silos for people like that. And so now if you've got a ChatGPT that can really write in interesting information, does that have an impact on the writing aspect of it, or the graphic design?
Does it mean instead of having 5 writers, you only need 3?
Exactly,
or 2 or
because bingo, that's what I'm thinking to myself. Like, and I think that's kind of where Jody was going, where yes and no. Yes, it may have an impact on some of those folks, but not overall. You're still going to need the human interface in it as well. Plus, I think we're right now, if I were to think of the impact, I think Jody's wise to look at it, I don't know, 3-5 years down the road. But right now, you can still tell. You can still, especially from a graphic standpoint, if you see the output of Midjourney, there's no doubt that was a graphic, an AI created graphic.
It's
what I mean?
It's starting to become obvious.
It's got a look. It's got a,
it's starting to become obvious. Yeah,
absolutely. So I don't know if that sustains or not, but for right now, it's easy to pick it out. So anyway, I think that kind of goes into the flow. If it's going to have a certain look or a certain nuance to it, well, then people are going to pick up on it, and then you can deviate around that. But it's interesing. I don't know your thoughts.
So I'll share a little about my experience here. The first time I really tried this out, because again, I haven't had too many opportunities to use it because it's hard to get into most of the time.
Now, what was your disposition going into it? Like, I'm going to thwart this thing?
No, it wasn't that. It was just like, oh crap, like, am I in trouble here? I mean, right, it's one of those things like, look, I know I do enough different types of things that there's other things I can pivot to, but I did start thinking about from the writing aspect, for instance, are people going to stop relying on me for writing?
Right. Yeah.
So the last time I had to write an ebook, I kind of went in and like gave it a prompt because it was a topic I didn't know a lot about.
Okay.
I gave it a prompt to give me some information about, like, what are some top pain points in this particular market and industry and type of situation. And it spit out some stuff for me. And I found myself looking at it, and I looked at it and said, there's some good stuff here. So copied and pasted it over. But I immediately found myself going, all right, I need to edit this. I need to change that up a little bit. This isn't quite our style of how we usually write this kind of stuff.
It doesn't fit the brand.
It doesn't fit the brand. There's a little
right?
too much wording. So your Grammarly even had some issues with some of the stuff, when I was running it through that. But there's another AI type programmer I use there. And so there was a lot of little things I found myself changing. And what I realized when I was done, I was like, well, this basically did the same thing that would happen if I gave this project to a freelancer. Every now and then we'll give one of these writing projects to a freelancer if we're really overwhelmed. And usually when I do, they'll give it back to me, and inevitably,
same process.
I go through an editing process.
You got to proof. You got to, yep.
Exactly. I'm never going to just take what they gave me, send it on to a designer, and that's the finished product, because they don't, again, quite know our process the way I know it and the way we know it. So I've still found myself going through a whole editing process. And I'm like, well, it's no different than that. So yes, in that sense, that's where I think like you can't just get rid of all of the writers. You can't get rid of all the designers. Does it mean, yes, that some businesses might decide to downsize a little bit and have fewer people?
Agencies, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think agencies would be up. But yeah, like in our situation where we've only got a couple people that are doing that anyway.
Not going to happen.
You can't afford to take one away because you still need somebody on that back end that's going to be doing that.
But what it may do is amplify the amount of production that we can do, right?
And hopefully that's not like, that's one of those things where I'm like, it can do that, but hopefully there's businesses don't start thinking that means to expect more.
I
like,
got you.
That's the downside I worry about, is someone's going to say like to their staff writer or designer, like, well, now I expect you to put
were
out
doing 4
twice as
blogs
much
a month. Now with ChatGPT, you should be able to do 16.
Exactly. Because I hate to say it, sometimes that editing process takes as long or longer than the writing process does. Especially if you're someone like me who's always second guessing himself a million times before you are ready to put something out and be published.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a big part of it. And the other part is what you guys have both mentioned, which is, and I know this especially on the design side, which is the idea that someone with a designer's mind is going to understand what does and doesn't look right and know what kind of prompts and questions and types of, like,
and that's the skill right there.
It really is. Like if you recall when Cordy was in here with us, first introducing us to Midjourney
now we're talking about the image AI.
Yes, when he was showing us Midjourney last year, and we were talking all about it. I think he had come in for a podcast, or maybe we were filming Bon Appetit or something. I don't know what it was, and he's showing us this stuff, and we're all like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
Clearly, Cordy is someone with a designer's mind who understands.
He knows what to ask,
like depth of field, and pixels, and all that stuff. Things that would never occur to me because I'm not a designer. He's adding that kind of prompts in and making it even better.
Wholeheartedly agree with you.
So I think the difference is this is where like. You can't replace the creativity. You can't replace the authenticity. You can't replace what people have been trained to know.
Yeah.
Because those people are going to have to give that kind of clarity to these AI projects. Because sure, someone can just easily go in and say like, I want an ad for a barcode scanner in a warehouse, and it'll give you something. But it's going to be as tacky and generic probably as it can get. Whereas a real designer
that
can
was
be like,
me. That was me. So when I first started playing with it, I'm like, baseball player on moon with beer. And that's as much as I could communicate. And of course the AI, dumped out something.
Yeah.
But to your point, a designer, we're going to use this in an ad. Okay, well then it needs to have this additional prompts, these additional prompts, or whatever, clarity on pixels, 16:9, in the form of, or in the I don't know how to ask those questions. So you're saying the skill is still is in your ability to put in the right information to get out of it.
Yes.
Quality
or
stuff.
to find some way to get on the writing side, change and edit in order to create a voice that speaks about your company, your tone, your feel. That's something you're never going to get an AI to replicate. I don't think you can, unless you were training your own personal AI for your company. You're never going to get it to write in the style of who you are.
I never even thought
brand,
about a personal AI.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that
Jody, do you have a
too,
personal AI yet? Like your own little?
Not yet. But I do think that's probably where the spirit of the whole AI industry is going, is that, you have that general intelligence that can do multifaceted tasks, right? Versus like a pointed task. But I love what you guys are talking about, because I think the key to using the tools today is really truly understanding how to get the most out of what you're asking, and that back and forth. So the ChatGPT is never going to ask you back, tell me a little bit more about why you're asking that question so I can better refine my output, right? If I have a conversation with my designer and I say, I want this design, right? I hope every single time my designer comes back to me and says, why? What are you trying to do? And has a list of 50 questions for me before they ever create the actual output. So that is still a gap with these AI models that are looking to increase the speed of productivity around writing and design. Yes, you will get an output quickly, but if you don't do the back work to get the right prompt in, that output is, to your point, John, going to be rather generic, stilted, not on brand, and really not going to probably accomplish the goals that you have for that campaign or that ad or that blog. I think that you can use these tools though, and there's been, if you go on, there's been a lot of people on LinkedIn kind of posting some really good prompts that include like using this framework. I need this kind of result back. I've used it for a features and benefits chart, like chart out or bullet out some features and benefits for me. You can ask it maybe for some some starting point on topic clusters, keyword research, things like that, where it's a starting point and you just kind of need to get the ball rolling. That's not as like full content based, but is more research based. So there are some different ideas out there on the right types of prompts to get good outputs out, but that's exactly right. You better have your strategy in place before you go to the tool, because otherwise what you're going to get back is not going to be, it'll be a good starting point. It'll be a good very first rough draft, but John, you'll have to do a ton of editing to get it to where you need to be.
And that's where I want to kind of get into this conversation about the positives and negatives of using these tools. And because that reminded me of a hilarious LinkedIn post I came across, which again, all these, there's a lot of links here of different articles we're pulling from that I'm going to share in the show notes. So someone named Edie Bidani shared a post about, basically her feelings about these AI tools and what she's seen of them. And the post starts with a picture of Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story 2, when you see the Buzzes in the toy aisle, where there's like, they're in their cases, like the original cases.
Yeah.
And it's a whole row of them. They all act exactly the same and think exactly the same.
Okay.
And so it says underneath the picture of just Buzz, I wrote this post using nothing but AI. And the next picture is the whole toy aisle of nothing but the Buzz Lightyears. So her point being, and then her post starts with, this is my LinkedIn feed for the last month. So basically, like, everybody's doing the same thing, and it all starts looking the same. And I think that hits on Jody's point earlier about if you're not asking the questions. Like, if you did give that project to a designer and said, here's what I want you to do, and they weren't the kind of designer that knew to ask questions, somebody that was either just not inclined to do that or had no particular interest in going above and beyond, they would churn something out this basic. And it's the same thing that 50 other designers who didn't ask the question would churn out the same way too. And that is part of, I think, of where a big negative potentially with this, if your plan is to do this without any kind of additional oversight, without any kind of plan, any kind of ideas built around it, or again, the people that are willing to go do the back end work either to clarify and and give it more depth and understanding, or do that editing on the back end. Because to your point, if 5 different businesses ask the same question or ask for the same type of thing, suddenly you're going to see 5 different companies that are all putting out the exact same marketing piece.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to be obvious. Like, you didn't really.
There's no differentiation.
Not only did you
here,
not have a person do this, but you didn't even bother, clarifying and making it a little bit different. So, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Go ahead, Jody.
I was just going to add too. I think that's where in at least my perspective, that's where some brands can really start to shine, because you are transparent. Like, we're bringing AI into the team. And maybe the authorship is not authorship anymore as we know it. Maybe it's team based, or it's authored by AI and edited by a certain subject matter expert. But I think actually coming right out and being like, we're going to be starting to leverage these tools so that where we got this information, just like you would cite any other source. I think that's also going to help companies stand out from this, vast array of content that's going to start pouring out from all these AI platforms.
Yeah. Boy, that's another good angle. I mean, should we start tagging content either visually or otherwise? Hey, this is partially generated by AI.
Right.
So that's a really good point. So where I was going to go is, as marketers, I guess we kind of need to learn the tool set. I can remember back when, the whole online thing first began, and marketing entities started hiring on and or gaining the skill sets of analytics, Google Analytics and just any analytics on digital marketing, and that became a thing, right? Because then you learned it, and then you tweaked your message and or whatever.
Yeah, that adaptability, like
adapting to the analytics. And so maybe this isn't going to be too wildly different than that. Maybe you're going to have somebody on your team that is the AI expert who can utilize the tools, generate content, but it still kicks back to the team so that it makes sure that it meets the brand, or we can tweak it to the way that we are trying to execute off of our strategies and our tactics. So really, really interesting. Maybe this becomes a person or a job or a role.
Could be. Here we go. There we go. Look at that.
I'm
Technology creating jobs instead of eliminating.
There you go. I'm the AI person of it. But it's really interesting. Should we start tagging it? I don't know. Are people going to want to know, this was generated
to your point, like,
by
the Mid-Journey stuff, like I'm starting to know it. Like when I see it, I'm like, oh, that was clearly generated by an AI of some sort. Yeah.
Today, yes. Yeah. But now, maybe 5 years from now, it'll do photorealistic that.
Exactly. I hope that's not the case in the future.
Kind of getting
I mean,
close.
it looks really good as it is.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just saying that for some reason there's some kind of a sheen to it, some kind of a a little je ne sais quoi, that I just can't quite figure out. That I'm like, I noticed this isn't quite what I would expect if a person was actually doing it themselves. So
and on BlueStar Nation, we just launched a story about utilizing some of these tools, and you'll see in there that James, two Jameses, they utilize the tools, and one of them they asked, for a guy in a warehouse or surrounded by boxes,
right?
And the image is awesome, but it looks like AI. It looks like it was, maybe I've been playing with it too much, and now I know what AI looks like.
But to that point, they are kind of setting a groundwork, and again, I'll have that link in the show notes because I highly recommend checking it out if you are thinking about doing this.
Oh man,
for your marketing,
it's a great article.
Especially I think for small VARs who maybe they know they need to do some marketing, they don't know where to start, they don't have anyone on staff who has any kind of real design chops to do this kind of stuff, and they're looking for some help. I think this can be a great place for you to start and differentiate you from other small VARs that are not going to do this at all.
To Jody's point, it's a Kickstarter, right? If you utilize it as kind of like, I got the blank page. That is so hard to deal with from a writing standpoint. I'm going to put in some prompts. I'm going to get it going, get the ball rolling. Maybe that's a good way to utilize it.
So that's kind of one of my positives. There is for the small business to help them get started. Jody, for you, what else do you see? Like if you're thinking about positives, negatives here, where else do you think that this technology can be beneficial and really help us out? And what are is there any other places where we should be cautious about this?
Yeah, so I, of course, in the spirit of this chat, asked ChatGPT for its own version of its
nice. Well played, Jody. Well played.
So ChatGPT says that some of the benefits are enhanced customer engagement. So those conversational chatbots and virtual assistants that we've been talking about to drive sales and loyalty. ChatGPT also says improved content creation, like we've been talking about, high quality content, save on resources. It says better audience insights, so analyzing interactions, helping to optimize marketing strategies, and then also increased efficiency, right? So the automation of marketing tasks so that marketers can focus on more strategic activities, probably a very common thing in our world because we say this about AMRs and AGVs, right, all day long, is the automation, let the automation do the repeatable tasks, let the humans do the creative and strategic ones. So that's what ChatGPT says, and I put in a really basic prompt, so I'm sure it could have gotten a little more specific for me. But I do think, honestly, the sky's the limit in terms of how you might leverage these AI platforms. ChatGPT right now is free. There is a pro version or a paid version, so that when you run into the capacity issues, you could kind of start to pay to get around that. But for the most part, I can mostly get into it for free still. Jasper and other tools like we've been mentioning are paid subscriptions, so that's going to be, from a marketing seat, you're going to have to evaluate your tech stack budget again, right? Which one of these tools are going to be important to bring on in order to get some of these benefits. But I've also seen a proliferation of people just like popping up like, we just built this new integration between ChatGPT and HubSpot, like download today, right? You see a lot of this stuff has popped up in the last month or so. And those, there was one, I brought it to my HubSpot technical consultant and I said, hey, what do you think about this? Because of course the hype, you get all excited, you want to leverage everything all at once. And his first thought was, well, they don't make it clear what they're doing with the data, who's owning the data, how are they using your data inside your HubSpot instance, and really what are the security concerns, all that stuff. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, right. remember the basics here, right? We're still talking about the fact that there is a data component. And I do think some of the risk factors are on that side of the equation. So how do customers feel about you starting to use this content or to use their data in a chat, right? Are they aware that they're chatting with ChatGPT versus a human? And do they know how that data is going to be used in order to further segment advertising or personalize advertising to them? There's been lots of talk around the personalized advertising space with AI. I mean, what are our rights? Am I signing on to get people to just make me want to buy more things all the time, right? Like, and how is that used? So I think from a data standpoint, that's a risk factor. The other parts are what we've already talked about, right? Just making sure that we're not pumping out low quality stuff that doesn't have good authority, that's infactual, or that's not really going to really support your overall marketing goals or your brand. But tons of great possibilities as long as we understand the technical structure of what's really happening, what's really at work, who owns what are the risks. I think if we go into it with eyes wide open, there's a lot to be gained.
Really good points, though, and we could drill into like 5 of those that she just brought up easily. But the leveraging of the data is really, duh. I just had that moment too, as well, Jody. It's like, this is 101 stuff. So if I sign on to have the chat integrated into our HubSpot, well, that company is now learning from everything that we're putting into it.
What are they doing with that?
They're the benefactors, not
exactly.
Well, I am a little bit, and then of course the tool, I guess, is going to get better.
They're probably getting a lot more out of it than you do, though.
But they're gonna pour an oracle on me, and they're gonna go to the next distributor or whatever and say, "Oh yeah, we got this fabulous one that's already learned your whole world, right?"
Yeah,
and that's not to my benefit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jody, you mentioned it up front. The whole idea of understanding what's the purpose behind this being out there, and when ChatGPT came out, they were pretty clear about what they were trying to do and what they were trying to accomplish. But there's again. While I was doing my research, I know what it was when I was looking at when I was trying to do ChatGPT yesterday, or a couple days ago, just to come up with a fun opening or whatever. And it was at capacity. I was like, all right, what other options do I have? And I literally found an article that was like 10 other options if ChatGPT is at capacity. I'm like, oh, great. And again, I looked through all of them, and they were either ones that just seemed. Either they were ones that I was going to have to pay money for, they were ones that I couldn't access unless you sign up for a wait list and a trial that was going to take you a couple of months to get in, or it was ones that just kind of felt a little sketchy.
Yeah, right.
And were didn't have a clean interface, was just like a website with a bunch of ads all over it, and
where there's mystery, there's money. Yeah,
exactly. And that got me thinking. I'm just
money.
There's going to be a lot of competition for this because, again, these folks are going to have to start monetizing it some way. There's going to be a paid aspect to it.
Yep.
And so there's going to be all these imitators that will pop up and say, hey, you can do it for free on our site. But to your point, what does that really mean?
Nothing's free.
Yeah, exactly.
They're learning
Nothing's
from
free,
you,
right.
and then they're going to leverage that in some other way.
It's the Wild West. I mean, it really is. So, you go back to all of your regular business practices, right? Do your research, focus on how it's going to affect your processes and your people. All the same traditional stuff still applies here, even though there's a lot of hype and you can feel yourself getting really excited. You kind of just have to come back down and be like, all right, let me just take a little bit more of an objective stance. And I mean, there's more stuff happening every day, right? Microsoft's Bing launches, and one article the day it launches, the journalist is saying this is the next greatest thing since sliced bread. Google's got a red alarm. Microsoft wins. Blah blah blah. Right? Day one. Next day, freaking journalist comes back and says, I had the weirdest, craziest, creepiest conversation with this AI. And I'm really worried about humanity, right? Literally was the first day.
That's a 24-hour news cycle right there. Yeah, right?
I am concerned for humanity. And so this is what we are all we got to ride this wave. We've got to figure it out. But I mean, know that the companies who are producing these tools may not have put in place the guardrails that you would do to protect yourself and your customers, right? So know that you are in it's a wild world, and there may not be those guardrails that we're used to in some other more established places, and it requires us to have a little bit more understanding and to do our research.
The other part of this equation too, and the last kind of negative I have about this, and where this might get kind of blown up over the next few years, is now we're starting to also hear these conversations about, and Jody, you mentioned early on the idea of like how was these things trained? How did we, what data set was it given? How big was that data set? How recent was that data set? Again, now the other part of the conversation starting to come up is, did the data set that it have access to, did it access that legally? And is it allowed
They're the
to use
lawyers
it?
coming in, just
And
like I talked about the other day.
You mentioned, a couple episodes ago that, like Getty Images was suing one of them
Absolutely.
because they were,
Used 12 million of their images.
You grabbed our images without our permission.
Yeah.
Well, now literally yesterday, as I'm prepping for this, I come across an article that's, because again, this is all changing every day, that says that apparently Wall Street Journal and CNN are among several media outlets that were basically named by because someone actually asked ChatGPT, where'd you get your sources? And it named all these outlets and included those, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, Forbes.
Oh boy, yeah.
And now Wall Street Journal and CNN are basically saying, we're not sure that you legally have the right to
That's
that.
right.
Like, is it okay for you to be sourcing stuff from us? And they're kind of saying like, well, we just use it for the training.
Yeah.
It's not like we're taking it and disseminating it straight back out and claiming that it's ours. But you start getting into some sketchy territory. You start getting into some legal territory.
Oh, the lawyers are going to have a heyday
Exactly.
with this. Oh my Lord.
So I have a feeling like,
what a tangled web we weave.
Exactly. Like, we're not done with this. People are going to start seeing potential dollar signs or ways that they
for sure.
They can sue these companies and say like, well, you shouldn't have been accessing and using our material, even if they asked or something. I don't know. So I think
that's one of
there's a
my
lot
negatives, though. Is like,
there.
what if we start getting into this and we start depending on it? It turns into this crutch, and a crutch that could be taken away, because now you're utilizing tools.
Are we going to stop training people on this stuff? Are we
Right.
going to stop teaching people how to write properly or design well?
We'll just let the AI get it to a certain point. Research goes away because research is done by the ChatGPT or whatever. I don't know. There are some interesting aspects negative on that front. Yeah. So
all right. Well, then let's talk about maybe then what could happen next. Let's put the prognostication glasses on. Look at our crystal ball. What do we think is going to happen next, Jody? Where do you see this going? We are obviously in a new frontier, and there is stuff to be excited about here. But what does happen next, given that we've already seen so much volatility in this over just a few months? Where do you think we're going next? What happens now?
Yeah, so I think I already prefaced, but in the spirit of prefacing and disclaimers, Jody is not an AI scientist. has only the most basic, rudimentary, ChatGPT-based understanding of this world. But I will say one of my favorite Substack, writers writes for what's called the Convivial Society. And it's this great exploration of technology and society, and he goes through a lot of different topics. And so I bring that up because I often look to people like that to kind of help me understand kind of at the macro level where these things might go. And what was interesting about the ChatGPT integration with Microsoft was it brought back up these conversations around AI sentience, AI feelings, because that's the natural place where people's brains go of like, where is this heading, right? Well, even if that isn't going that direction, like even if the AI hasn't reached those levels, people's perceptions as these chatbots get more and more proficient in our language, we will still feel like that's the case. And no one knows what the ramifications are for that in terms of us as humans, right? So at the macro level, I'm super fascinated in reading like how people are thinking through this and understanding it. At the more marketing level, where we're going, I mean, I do think you have to embrace these tools so that you are prepared. I do think that the marketing teams who understand that this is going to be a component of their world are in better position to compete than those who don't. Just like we would counsel a company to embrace automation in their warehouse, it's the same on the marketing side. We have to embrace automation, but we have to do it in a strategic way, and we have to do it with open eyes and really what's best for our customers. But to me, I will be personally looking for ways to continue to leverage these tools to become a better marketing organization for the company, so that we can do better by our customers. But I don't want to use these tools to just spit out more, right? That's, the quantity is not what I'm interested in, but I am interested in the quality and some of the efficiency gains. So macro level, God only knows, marketing level, really interested to see how AI becomes part of the team.
That's really smart take there,
Yep.
Jody. I couldn't agree with it more. I mean, we're already consuming it, right? Whether you like it or not. So I'm in a fantasy football league, and I get a spit out. Well, during the season, you get a spit out of. And it's obviously written by AI, but it's like a story of how your week went.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Landry's legacy
cracked me up.
played,
Yeah.
whatever, Jack's blah, blah, blah. And because of the da-da-da-da-da, and it's like a cute little story. It's 2 paragraphs, right? But I read it and I get a chuckle every now and then, but it's totally AI. So we're already consuming it. We already know that it's there. I think it's smart to understand the tools, become somewhat perfect. Not like, you're right. We don't all have to be uber AI scientists and know how to, the back end, but we got to know that it's out there and how to utilize it and how companies are going to utilize it. That's the smart way, because, if there are some benefits out there, as we've discussed here, maybe it is. It gets us a little bit better on the research side, and we can come up with smarter articles and things of that nature. Yeah. Then that's a benefit, right? And so we got to leverage it for those. Anyway.
Meanwhere, when I was a fantasy football commissioner, I was out there at one point writing weekly summaries.
You were doing the weekly
and
summary.
sending them to the league of
I'm sorry. I did not mean to rub salt in the wound.
No. It's fine, because again, I read those myself, and I'm like, one thing I'm just like, that's never near as good as what I would have done, But the other part of it is I just stopped doing it because no one really cared that much. It was something I was doing more for me than for anyone else, I think. But,
no, to sharpen your skills, right?
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
But to Jody's point, I'm not an AI scientist either.
No.
I honestly have no clue about what this all really means or where it could go.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that's the other part of it too. I think even the people who do know a lot about this, I think where this is going to go, we don't currently get it. Like, we don't really know.
No, we don't.
I mean, it's like
It's
any
happening
technology.
so fast.
Yeah, it's like any tech. This new innovative tech comes out. We all have these grand ideas of what it's going to do, and then fast forward a decade, what it actually has done is completely different than what we thought.
That's right.
Like it never turns out the way we think it's going to, or it rarely does at least.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can't even conceive of how we might be using this in later. The only things I can think of when I started thinking of like what could happen, like to your point, you mentioned HubSpot earlier. I can see a lot of integrations with other tools happening. And I think that's honestly where this probably will start becoming most beneficial for people, is figuring out how can we integrate this kind of technology into the tools that we as marketers or salespeople, whatever, already utilize.
Exactly.
So to your point,
or engineers, I think it's ubiquitous in its ability.
So to your point, HubSpot, we use HubSpot, for a lot of our marketing stuff. I love the idea of thinking like, is there a way there could be a tool built in there that makes it easier for me to put together an email in the future, or makes it easier for me to build my audience from our current, list of people that we have in our database
in a smarter way.
Yeah, like targeting tools. As a marketer, I'm always trying to figure out what's the best way I can target people. I'm always, when I'm running a new campaign in a new industry that I know nothing about, I'm always out there searching around on Google, like, find me newsletters that speak to this audience, digging through 5 or 6 different ones to figure out which ones have an option that I could potentially send an e-blast out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to always refine my audience there, and it's stuff that's it's very time consuming. I'm like, maybe there's a way that AI could help improve that in the future, make it easier to do that. Or even if I'm thinking like one of our VARs, like maybe there's going to be easier ways to build solutions where you can come to BlueStar's site or something, and we have a solution builder that's powered by an AI in some way that you can just punch in, hey, my customer is looking for point of sale. Yeah. They're a small retailer. They're focused on groceries, and they, and they typically have about 2,000 transactions a day or something like that. Maybe that's the kind of stuff you can punch in that can, pull from all these disparate, vendors and solutions and say, all right,
information.
Here are 3 solutions that should match, what your customer's looking for. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that would be very handy and useful. So again, I'm not trying to get rid of our sales folks who would ideally be helping them with that conversation. But let's be honest, we also know there's a lot of people who they'll skip those people anyway. They're the ones who go online, do the research themselves. Maybe they're going direct to BlueStar and buying straight from there. They're doing the work on their own anyway. So if you can find a way to pull them to you where they, they're doing the work on your website and your, in your space, and then when they find what they want, they can just click buy and move forward from there. Why not? So.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And then the lawyers slow everything down. So it doesn't really matter.
Yes. Someone will throw a wrench in the works somehow. So. All right. Well, hey, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we're talking about
we
this.
got more
we
topics
got a little,
here that we could keep
oh,
getting
we do.
into. Maybe we should come back in like
this
3
could
months.
be this could be like a monthly or quarterly conversation
until it starts settling a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get to some VAR value and kind of maybe really explain a little bit more about how our VARs could benefit from some of this, we want to, as always, thank our TEConnect sponsors. We appreciate all the folks that sponsor our TEConnect program, that sponsor the podcast directly,
like Zebra, Intel,
yeah.
Oh, great. We'll name a couple.
You're gonna start naming them all.
Just a couple
I don't
of them.
have them all.
Just a couple of them. Yeah,
right.
we'll do a couple at a time.
No offense if Dean left someone out. It's not like we forgot you. We just, every once in a while we'll read off the entire list because there's so many of you at this point.
Yes.
As always, if you like the show, though, we need to know. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, go down below. There's always that like button to hit just to say like, yeah, I like this. If there's, if you want to leave a comment, go leave a comment. Tell us what you think. What's your opinion on AI?
You could ask AI what to ask us. What should I ask John and Dean?
There you go. Exactly. And it's going to go, John who?
Dean who?
Well, actually, it's not going to ask you that. It's going to pick some other random John and Dean. Yeah.
Submit your AI question.
Somehow I don't know if the TEConnect podcast is part of the database and data set that these were trained on.
Well, it's clearly not Jasper. If it doesn't go,
that's a good point.
Yeah,
say we didn't start the pod until after that. So.
Yeah, right.
But hey, if you like the show, also subscribe to us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to BlueStar's YouTube channel. We're doing lots of fun, great video content there. You're not going to want to miss it. Plus, you get notified whenever we get a new episode out.
Yep.
If you are on your podcaster of choice, make sure you subscribe to the show. Leave us a rating or review if that's a possibility. I'd love to see some more 5-star rating and reviews on Apple Podcasts, for instance. Be happy to read some of those on air if you leave us some feedback. And then, of course, as always, as Dean has mentioned a few times here, we need to hear from you and what you want to hear about on the show.
Absolutely.
So even if you got to ask an AI to tell you that, what should I ask a couple guys doing a podcast about VAR channel trends or something or whatever? Fine, whatever it is, there's always a link in the show notes where you can send your submissions into us for topic ideas, your thoughts, your feedback, people you want to hear from, industry deep dives you want, vendors you want us to talk to, whatever it is, send that information to us. Just for doing so, we will send you a TEConnect podcast t-shirt.
Boom.
Jody, you have one of the t-shirts. How is it? Do you like it?
I love my t-shirt. It's so soft and wonderful.
There
soft
you go.
And wonderful.
Soft and wonderful.
Yes, perfect.
That's like something you put on the back of a book jacket, soft and wonderful.
Yes.
Like Jody Costa, Barcoding. So maybe we'll put that on the next t-shirt.
Yes, soft and wonderful.
So guys, just while we were chatting, I asked the ChatGPT, what questions should I ask the BlueStar TEConnect podcast?
And
you know a couple that it said?
Yeah.
Okay. It said, what inspired you to start this podcast and how has it evolved since the beginning? Share some of your interesting, surprising insights you've gained from interviewing experts in the tech industry. What emerging techs do you think will have the greatest impact on society? Blah, blah, blah. So I'll send you the full list.
There you go.
Maybe
Jody, boom.
That could be an entire episode.
Right there. Yes, exactly. We got to answer the AI.
The ChatGPT generated episode of the TEConnect podcast.
I love it, Jody. You're awesome.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
awesome.
I love that. All right, folks. So yes, as always, please send us your ideas. And as always, follow us, connect with us. You can always email us, techconnect@bluestarinc.com, and find us on Twitter @TechConnectPod. All right, let's wrap things up here as always, starting with our value to the VAR.
Yes.
This is where we kind of try to find a takeaway for our
we've
VAR
been talking
listeners.
a lot about VARs today.
Yeah,
but
I think we have here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I want to get into it because obviously we're talking about this mostly from a marketing and advertising perspective because we're marketers. But Jody, do you think outside of marketing and advertising, do you see any places where AI tools could benefit VARs to improve their business? What else could they potentially do with these tools, either as they exist now or maybe as this evolves in the future?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember we use AI every day, all of us, whether we know it or not. So AI is a pretty broad term, but I think these language models, and we describe pretty well how useful they are in terms of research. So I think even from just consolidating your research methods in terms of product development or market insights and things like that, you could start with ChatGPT to start to get a list of maybe blogs to follow or books to read or places to kind of really hone your research if you're developing new products or new markets. I also think the customer experience side is a really good opportunity. So how do you better serve your customers, and implement AI in order to speed their solution, issue resolution or things like that. And then, of course, a lot of the technology that our partners and us are bringing to the table, AI is being built into our software platforms in order for those platforms to more functionally and effectively support people. So yeah, lots of good things happening. But I think from the VAR perspective, work with your partners, because AI is already kind of being developed in the products, and then look for ways to improve the customer experience and speed your research.
Oh, I love it.
like
Those
it.
are good things.
Yeah,
and you can really ask it different questions. As we've talked, we have folks focused on the marketing aspect, but seriously, I mean, you can ask it business related questions like, how should we use machine vision in WMS? And it'll give you an answer, some insightful stuff, maybe that you weren't thinking about, and to Jody's point on the research, expediting research and because as business owners, or if you're into the business itself, and really want to do well, these are the types of things that you're asking yourself. It can help speed that along. So it's really fascinating the way that you can utilize the tool.
I agree.
So
a couple little things I thought of is maybe writing better proposals. So let's say you're trying to pitch yourself to a customer. There's a project coming along. There's a project that's come along. You want to be able to be the first on top of that.
Yep.
You want to explain your company's value or whatever. Maybe just it can help you maybe write a little bit of a better proposal, or at least give you a framework for what a proposal could look like. I don't know. Automating processes. We've had an entire episode before about automation and how VARs can use automation to improve their day-to-day work and get faster and better and continue to grow. I'm sure there's some AI tools that could potentially help out with that.
Yep.
Internal communications. Jody, you mentioned you sent out some stuff to your team that was written through that. If I don't know, maybe you're a manager that you're great at understanding how sales work and working with your team like that. Maybe you're a good pep talk manager type person, but maybe you're just not great at writing, and you want to write some better emails or something. Maybe this can still be at least a cut above what you would normally write and give you some ideas for inspirational emails that you could send out to your team or something.
I'm making the note right now. Go ahead.
I'm going to, the first time you send out an email that I'm going to know is written by ChatGPT, I'm going to call you out
for
on
the
it.
intranet that we're launching. Go ahead.
There you go. And then I mentioned this earlier because there's been some conversation around it. I haven't really dove into this part of it because I've been focused on the marketing part, but coding. And it sounds like
fascinating.
It sounds like there are opportunities here. And this seems to me is like one of those places where this may be where this really kind of ends up taking off as an actual real benefit is some coding. Now, granted, there's been some people who have said, oh, I've done this and it's what it spit out was bad code or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where I think if you have a coding expert who can kind of give a little more input on the back end and explain what they want. I mean, imagine how useful that could be if it could help you spit out, code a little bit faster and easier than before. So
right, debug code.
Debug,
that too, exactly.
Yep. Or write an Excel macro for this, So
if for our software partners, maybe there's some, some applications there that can help them, accelerate their business.
Fascinating.
And make better software.
Yep.
So some of the stuff that I had in mind there.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap up as always with What's Tech Connecting with You, our fun segment where we get to talk about something in the world of science, tech, innovation, business. That we just want to chat about. Caught our eye, got our attention. We want to get into it. Jody, I'll let you kick off here. What's Tech Connecting with You right now?
Oh boy, you guys know that I never have anything actually tech connected with me, other than what we just talked about with AI. But so I will throw out where I started, kind of when ChatGPT launched, and my brain immediately went to one of my all-time favorite movies, Jurassic Park. And I couldn't help but think of Dr. Ian Malcolm and saying, just because you can, you never stop to think that you should, or, right, that quote. And I thought, have we unleashed the dinosaurs with large language models? And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. But also, thinking about evolution, and it is time to evolve and to kind of embrace technology. So I'm tech connecting by kind of going back to my sci-fi roots on Jurassic Park and really thinking through, where are we today? And I love the big concept stuff, the philosophy side of this. So that's where my brain is right
That's
now.
good stuff.
And
it's healthy to
paraphrase Dr. Malcolm, AI finds a way.
Finds a way. Exactly.
Well played, John. Well played.
All right, what's Tech Connecting with You?
So do you have enough subscriptions in your life yet?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
I mean,
but I've got Jody.
There's
Do you do
more.
a lot of these
There's more to be
subscriptions?
had, but yes.
Are you bringing in food? Are you,
No, I
Netflix?
don't do a huge amount of subscriptions, but
Well, I got a better one for you. This one will make
Yeah.
you feel better. Subscription trash can send food waste to farms instead of landfills. So there's a company out there that will help reduce waste, right? The team is called Mill, actually is the name of the company. A garbage can that doubles as an indoor composter, but also for $33 a month, they'll come and collect it and then take it out to farms where they can utilize the compost, right?
That's really cool.
So I kind of like that one. I was like, I'm subscriptioned out, but $33 a month to do, so they give you the device,
right,
and it sits there and it does its composting. I think once a month or something like that, they come and collect it. And then they take it out to the farms in their neighborhood. I'm like, now that's a good subscription. There you go.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So we're all investing in the company. It's called Mill.
I kind of like that. I mean, because I keep hearing on podcasts about like Lomi, I think is what it's called, which is kind of like a
Lomi.
It's kind of like it's like a tabletop composter.
Oh, okay.
That you like you keep like on the counter or whatever and like put stuff in it, and basically it just generates compost that then you got to go take out and put it in your yard or do whatever.
Okay. Right.
Can I skip that part of the step?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't want to sit out there and. What's that, Jody?
Renical, I can plug them. I have one. It's I got it off a Kickstarter, so maybe I do TEConnect. Okay, the Renical is cool. It's like the size of a garbage can, and it's these microorganisms that break down food waste really quickly into compost, and it runs like really quiet. You don't smell it or anything. But I call them the creatures. So like when we have leftover stuff in the fridge, I'm like, I gotta go feed the creatures. But it's crazy. Like you waste next to nothing when you do stuff like that. And I hadn't heard of the subscription. That's really cool.
I think I'm in. I don't
there you
know.
go.
This was a new world to me, but I want to do good. And
interesting.
I'm not going to get into the whole carbon offset and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But, I can
It is something
definitely see
beneficial for the environment. Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to point out for anyone who listens to the audio only podcast, when Jody said feed the creatures, she totally did the like evil scientist kind of finger wiggles. Yeah.
So I got to go feed the creatures.
So, love that.
All right, what's tech connecting with you,
all
John?
right. Well, we always enjoy talking about the James Webb Telescope.
Yes,
and I
we
love
do.
that this thing is just an endless, an endless pool of new discoveries and cool pictures and stuff. And yet, apparently, it's so cool. No, that's not a bad thing. It's so cool that it's even finding stuff that it didn't even plan on finding.
Oh, great.
So apparently this headline says the James Webb Space Telescope just found an asteroid by total accident, its smallest object yet. It's a Washington Monument-sized space rock that was discovered in data not intended to hunt asteroids and shows how useful the powerful telescope is close to home. So apparently, again, I don't understand all the
is this
details
the
of
one that
this.
came within a mile of us? Or a million miles?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, a mile would be too close.
Yes,
Right,
yeah, a mile would be a little scary. It didn't clarify that, but it just mentioned they were apparently using something called mid-infrared instrument, which is a whole different data collection thing that it's supposed to do, not intended for asteroids, but apparently as they were sifting through the data, a random small asteroid that they had never seen or found in any other way, it was like, just found within that data, and they, did a little more digging, looked at it, and trained some other telescopes on it, and found like, oh, hey, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Well, and infrared is I've found is key there because the visual light thing. If there's clouds out in space, whether it's gas or whatever, we can't see through that. But infrared, you can.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what kind of unlocked this. And
exactly.
Well, look at what we just found.
And maybe there's some nice practical implications for finding, more interesting, like smaller objects close to home that we don't detect.
We kind of want to know about those, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to kind of like run into us.
Yeah, I'd say that's
anyway.
sort of important. You don't want that, bus size. And granted, it's got to start out pretty big to get to us as a bus size.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Still,
I know. I love that.
We don't need any surprises.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
So
I like it.
Just another cool little thing that the JWST has accomplished. So.
Yeah.
All right, that's what's tech connecting with us today. Jody, thank you so much for joining us again. We always love having you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys inviting me today and to talk about AI. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we'll have you back again in the future.
Yeah.
We know you're going to be back on the show. Just accept it. There's
I love this show.
A warm virtual seat waiting for you at all times. Yes. So until next time, folks, we do have to unplug. But hey, maybe let some little creatures eat up your meals and send it to a farm somewhere. Yeah. Like the whole sending it to a farm upstate kind of gets a weird connotation.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah.
And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Zebra. All right, Dean. This ad was not written by an AI.
Oh, good. All right.
Promise
Fair enough.
I mean, some of this content I got from something Zebra put out. So
Yes.
I'm assuming they didn't do that. But either way,
good point.
This is not an AI reading this.
All right.
This is your friendly neighborhood podcast. So it's here.
Fair enough. What do we got?
Introducing the TC53 and TC58, the first members of a new generation of Zebra mobile computers designed to do more. All right, what makes these devices so different?
Let's see. I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
No, I don't know.
I don't know why you
Should
don't
I
know this
ask
stuff off the top
somebody?
of your head.
No.
You're asking AI. No, we're not going to ask an AI. We're going to tell you. New hardware that redefines mobile computing performance. New solutions, sensor technologies, and all the latest and fastest wireless technologies, including 5G, Wi-Fi, 6E, and CBRS. It's redefining the world of possibilities.
Holy moly.
A class-leading Full HD plus 6-inch display helps workers to see more, do more, and scroll less. I'm always all for
Even
that.
better.
I don't like to have to
No.
scroll through,
You wanna be able to
50
see it,
pages of
right?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
With Zebra-only mobility DNA tools, the TC53 and 58 deliver a built-in advantage, maximizing user productivity while minimizing IT complexities throughout the entire device lifecycle.
Nice.
Also, new manufacturing technologies make them thinner, yet even more rugged. We always want to get thinner, smaller, easier
absolutely.
to stick in your pocket, and yet not shatter the first time you accidentally drop it.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yes.
The TC53 and 58 mobile computers offer a new generation of data collection, a new level of operational efficiency, and a new level of workforce productivity.
Boom.
Driving new possibilities into the world of mobility. To learn more about these devices and find resources like spec sheets, a battle card, and more tools to help you sell, check out the link in the show notes. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by ELO. Another introduction of some new products
Yes.
here. Introducing the 70 series Full HD professional grade touch monitors.
Nice.
It's always cool when Elo puts new stuff out.
Yes.
Even with kind of cool new touch technology.
Yes.
The 70 series delivers professional grade, feature-rich platforms well suited for POS, interactive digital signage, self-service, document signing, and more. All right, let's talk some features here. We love getting to these features.
Yes, sir.
A narrow border touchscreen.
Okay.
Energy Star 8.0 certified. So you can be environmentally
8.0.
conscious with this one here.
Ooh, yeah.
Scratch-resistant surface.
All right.
Durable IK07 design. Low blue light and flicker free.
Best.
Touch on-screen display tilt from 20 to 70 degrees, built-in speakers, and a collapsible stand for Visa mounting.
There you go.
It's pretty impressive.
More than impressive.
And we're not even done here. We haven't even talked about that it's available in 22, 24, or 27-inch sizes, black or white housings. The 70 series will deliver the quality and reliability that you expect from me, though, obviously.
Yeah.
Backed with a standard 3-year warranty, extendable to 5 years with optional advanced unit replacement. To learn more and be the first to sell these new touch monitors, check out the link in the show notes.